So, hi, and thank you, Parasite, for the invitation to Freya and Cosmin. So, let's start with it. There was a nice insistence on Freya for me to talk about the Arthur, and and it was a good opportunity to look for some text that I have written during like the last years on that. So this is going to be a kind of recollection on some of those texts. I divided like in 6 parts the presentation. I will try to go faster in order to cover it. The first one is art and money. When bankers get together for dinner, they discuss art. When artists get together for dinner, they discuss money. That is a phrase by Oscar Wilde. It's very uncomfortable to talk about money. There is a very good text by Sarah Thornton that is about top 10 reasons not to write about the art market. For instance, the 8th reason is, it implies that money is the most important thing about art. Money talks loudly and easily drowns other meanings. The general public's interest in money takes art stories out of the art section and into the front pages of the newspapers. But maybe art is better served when the articles about it are on the back. You can read it on the internet. But of course, money liberated art. Here we see a painting by Caravaggio that was rejected by the person who commissioned it, that it was the church. And then Caravaggio repeated in order to get the money of the church, but the painting that was left over was bought by a contest. So he received both payments. So money liberates art from its previous patrons, state or religion. And of course, you can be creative with money. Here we have an example, for instance, of an artist named Marcel Brothaers, who sold in an art fair by a contract, or tried to sell in an art fair by a contract, a gold bar stamped with an eagle. And he tried to sell it at the double of the price of gold. I'm not aware if he achieved it, but it was a gesture to show that that kind of speculation can be achieved. But also, you can see on the other side Robert Projansky contract. And it's a contract written by this person who used to deal with artists and who also was a lawyer. And it's a contract where an artist can specify the way he wants for the collector or the institution to manage its work. So it will be a good option for a lot of artists who are supposedly to be political, but they don't care about how they sell their work, and they don't use that contract. Of course, it's a problem to use that contract. You have to be very famous in order to use it. Otherwise, people will reject you because you are problematic. This is an interview with the editor of a magazine, of a book named Collecting Contemporary. And I like this phrase on this interview. I like an analogy from the sciences. The artist split the atom, but our market creates the atom bombs. That's a good metaphor. The bomb makers funded the scientists. Through the scientists may lament the result of the creation. So of course, the artist can play with the money. For instance, we have here like the most valued or prized artist, that is Gerhard Richter. And in an interview that he gave, he mentions like 3 intents that he tried to interfere with the flow of his works. So for instance, recently he put a sale price of 2,000 on one of his photographs. But the owner of the gallery told him, you can sell that for 2,000. It needs to be more like 10,000 or 20,000. On another occasion, Richter recounts that he made 100 small original paintings and sold them very cheaply. They sold immediately and promptly ended up being sold at auction. And in a third round, he assumed the role of his alter ego, the critic. comparing two of his own works and saying that the one that had reached a price at auction of more than 30 million is quite inferior to a much cheaper one. But who cares about the critic? Now it's only collectors and public relations services who write the history of art. So here we have it seems one of the most powerful artists trying to interfere with the prices of his work, and he is helpless to do it. But of course, the freedom for doing art is the same freedom for buying and selling art. You cannot have one without the other. So you can be very angry about Gabriel Orozco's empty shoebox, but the same strategy of emptiness is used, for instance, in the Panama Papers in the way they deal with art. There are works of art now that are in a container in a free tax zone in Switzerland or wherever, and nobody sees that work. Nobody knows if that work is still there, and it's only changing owners, So both places are using the same strategies. The thing is, one is maybe it's for tax purposes, but the other may be for intellectual purposes, but they are using the same strategies. So you cannot have one without the other. Otherwise, we will need somebody who will define art and who can tell us, this is degenerate art and this is real art. And I think it will be more dangerous than to leave this thing keep happening. So now I'm from Colombia. Thanks to Sofia for having shown us the map. So Colombia is very near Venezuela. And this is the second part. The second part is the Colombian art scene is one of the best in the world. I hope to convince you. Otherwise, I will look for an authority to do it. So Colombia has been visited, during the last 15 years, by people from art. This is an article that I wrote in a political site named La Silla Vacía, where I have a small part in a small blog there. And I use that blog to talk about power, about images, about Colombian politics. It's not visited by artists almost. It's visited by people who are interested in the political drama or in the political comedy around Colombia. And on this one, I make an entry about a curatorial tour that happened in Colombia in 2013. The curatorial tour was composed by at least 30 curators from Austria and Europe, and by an important character. And it seems that they put the program on the internet available to everybody. I don't know if it was a mistake. And you can see here, the program. And it was very strange because it included the names, the daily schedule. And these people were going to be in Colombia for 10 days, and they were fully scheduled. It even appears there the pink lemonades that they were going to take in the terrace in Cartagena in front of the sunset. And also, if this was patronized by Thyssen-Bornemisza art program. So in the Facebook page, they used to put all the pictures of the visiting. So you can see all the curators here, getting wet, or visiting, certain art venues. Or strange things, for instance, I didn't know that this man, Pierre Hubert, who seems to be very known in Europe for his art speculations, he has a mansion in Cartagena. And he will receive all these people for breakfast. And also, Cartagena is very hot. And you can see one here, one of the main characters of this visit, Hans Ulrich Obrist, enduring the heat. Here I'm posing for Jet Set magazine. On that program of visiting, they put all the pictures of the important people in Colombia with whom all these curators had to meet. Mostly those people were not artists, were not art spaces, but were collectors. And even in some issues, it says that the collectors weren't going to be at their homes because they were traveling. but they will offer like hordes of overs or tropical juices for their guests. So they must feel comfortable in the houses. Also, they meet with artists, but the meeting was a little bit strange because it was a public meeting. So the artists had to do the same thing that I'm doing here right now. They have to practice their English. So all the artists that you will see, they were really like younger artists, middle-aged artists, and they will have to present their work in English, but they were not translators. And it was a public meeting. So it was a very strange situation. And some young artists that they have a collective, they decided that not too much to promote themselves, but to use the venue to play some songs. And they have a group named like the Telepathic Rings, and they play songs of their album. And while they were playing the songs, they will project with a video projector, like letterings like this, like, are you planning to create Colombian art, or Colombian art is nice, or are you scouts of art, or are you happy with art, things like that. Some of the, I wasn't there, but I asked, and it seems that it didn't like to some of the curators, so they went away for a while, and when this happened, they went again to see us, to see the artists practice their English. In one of the most important newspapers of the country, named El Tiempo, this was the person who says that the Colombian art scene is one of the best in the world. So we are very happy. And he said it there. I checked it because the phrase was really strange, but he said it. So now we have Hans Ulrich Sobrist, like seal of approval. And it's good to have visitors. For instance, this was a visitor that we have in 1963. And this is the way he described the Colombian scene. Bogotá is high and cold and wet, a damn chill that gets inside you like the inner cold of young sickness. There is no heat anywhere, and you are never warm. In Bogotá, more than any city I have ever seen in Latin America, you feel the dead weight of Spain, somber and oppressive. Everything official bears the label made in Spain. So here I'm back in Bogotá. No money waiting for me. Check apparently stolen. Bogotá is essentially a small town. Everybody worrying about his clothes. This was written by William Burroughs in his letters to Allen Ginsberg, and is compiled in the Jagged Letters. So it's very good now that the visitors, it seems that they have a better experience. The third part. ARBO, International Fair of Bogotá, Colombia. So I was asked by a review for the issue of January of 2015 to write an article about Colombia. How was Colombia? So I wrote an article named Colombia is a Normal Country. To write that article, I based it on some reviews that have appeared on our forum about the art fair. This is from where I took the information. Our forum's society photos and notices are published in a Scene and Heard, an editorial bed where astute rumor shares the sheets with camouflages spread releases, a glamorous who's who that spills out names and boosts the reputation capital of the renown. The entries, diary-like with a literary tint, are vignettes and gossipy tidbits that could serve as sketches for a present-day Balzac writing his human comedy with art world personalities. Nothing but a smart editorial move by our forum. A play to draw traffic to the .com, as seen as here, is more digestible than the majority of the art-speak text published in this ponderous magazine that is forever loitering around the 300-page mark. So these are the 3 reviews that appear on our forum, and it's seen here, from 2012 to 2014. Then it stops. In 2015, they didn't do it. And this year, we hope to do it, but I don't know if we can make it again. So I based my article on that. This is the first one. In 2012, a seen and heard diary entry titled New Normal. Dawn Chong reports that Bogota is living one of its many renaissances. The circles of private security with their muscle Rottweilers are signs of a latent danger. But the Creole jet set seems ready to start spending more time in their country and is hoping to receive visitors in their immense apartments. Chance sprinkles her sketch with artistic names and events, but then seems to have the intention of abandoning the tone of an infomercial in order to go deep into criticism. She speaks of a mural featuring the word mierda, mess, shit, rubbish, as a protest against the death of a murdered journalist. Chan gets the name of the journalist wrong, writing Jamie Garzon instead of Jaime Garzon. She describes a torrential downpour in a neighborhood on its way to gentrification and mentions how, through the rain, she sees a small crowd of mourners calling for justice because 10 years earlier, 300 of their own have been killed with complete impunity. She gets the number wrong. More than 3,000 members of the United Patriotica political party died. Chan intends to give her entry another layer of depth. Like everything else, the art scene was complicated, she writes. The response I received through the week to so many questions, everything was complicated. So she gets to his point. And then, well, it seems this space, the social pages, isn't the place to address social complexities. In 2013, Chan was replaced by Kevin McGarry, who in his column Existential Environments describes a looser art scene, less complicated than Chan's, and mentioned different art houses in Bogota and Medellin, highlighting their flower growers and naming the cheerful social fauna of butterflies and bumblebees. In 2014, the task fell to Frank Esposito, who in his diary entry, My Bo, reveals a safe country where the travelers feel at home, takes the place over, and mingle at breakfast, dinner, and parties with other art world travelers and celebrities. So I put this meme on the corner. I don't always buy drugs, but when I do, I buy from Colombia. And of course, what about the drugs? I'm sure that is a question that all these travelers made in Colombia. So let's see how they cover the issue of drugs. As evidence of the sophisticated and politically correct state of the local art scene, an elegant gallerist offers McGarry coke, but in the form of a tea that relieves the symptoms of altitude sickness. He also has a conversation with a Pleiad-safe curator who's opened a gallery when the intention is to highlight the links between art and nature. McGarry interprets this to mean that the dynamic of the place will be one of mixing illustration with historicism, and the violence that has shaped so much Colombian consciousness and culture with botanics. He uses botanics instead of saying drugs. For his part, Frank Esposito runs into a rabble-rousing artist, forgotten but at the point of being discovered, who tells him, "It used to be so hard here that the cartels will steal my art forums." They needed to sneak drugs. Drugs or conflict in the country are present in all three profiles, but only in small doses, and in the picturesque terms of providing local color. The myth of the good, bad, or bad Colombian savage seems to have been switched for that of the modern or savvy postmodern Latino. Visitors pronounce themselves happy to have found vestiges of modernity where they would have never expected. Just as pre-Hispanic ruins are useful to archaeologists, for those hustling ethnographies of contemporary art, there is a gilded modernity that deserves to be recovered. The fluid dialogue between enlightened Creoles and illustrious visitors, as contained in these lighting visits, gets one to lofty pickings of intensity for brief moments. instances of epiphany in which junkies and art groupies cross social and cultural lines, all with the aim of communicating and continuing to communicate the communicativeness of communication. A form of telepathy, particular to these kinds of global and cosmopolitan commercial exchanges. Guatemala may be the final fix. If you go into that video there, that video it's the name of the video is New Down for Colombian Artists. And that curator at the end says, but in Guatemala there is a very good scene. Okay. 4. Dim sum of Latin American art identities. So I brought you these plates. First, you can have political muralist. Then you will have to have later fantasy surrealist. I simply put this one as a bonus track, you know. It's a strange paper clipping. Wife of the master's mural painter gleefully doubles in works of art. And there is Frida Kahlo there, like end of the weekend painter. Incomplete modernist. Validators of the modern canon. Cannibals. Tropicalistas. Natural resource explorers. Poetic conceptualists. Subjects turns between the aesthetic and the political in the ups and downs of autocratic regimes. So, of course, this is the dim sum of Latin America art identities. We produce art with that. This is our local color, and we will keep producing it. There is no problem with that. We have enough problems, and we will keep producing that kind of art. But yesterday, somebody was talking here about categories, you know. There can be other categories, there can be other questions, or we are going simply to offer this kind of dim sum. 5. Uses of art. Different uses of art. So a short story here. So they asked me to talk about the art fair. The fair of Bogota is ARBO, Bogota International Art Fair. The person that you see here is Maria Paz Gaviria. She's the director of the art fair. That picture over there is in a Photoshop montage. She likes to be framed that way. She's holding the frame for a jet set picture, you know. So that's the person who is in charge of the art fair. She's the daughter of this man. This man is Cesar Gaviria. He was a president of Colombia. Of course that she has been capable of improving the fair. She has a lot of assistants. But there is a lot of people in Colombia who is more qualified than her for that position, and they couldn't get it. If you want to know more about Cesar Gaviria, you should see the Narcos Netflix miniseries. There you will get a lot of information on Cesar Gaviria. There he is. He's saying there will be a future. Of course, his history is more tragic than in showing Narcos. I like Narcos. I like that Pablo Escobar, even if it's scary to say that. You know? But the problem with Narcos is that they don't name names. Because the names that they could be named are names that are still in power, or are names that still will be able to sue Narcos or Netflix, because they are not protecting. In a way, they are protecting their image of those names. So sometimes the Narcos fits with reality, and sometimes not. And of course, it's a fiction. It's a fiction. It's a representation of that. But let's talk about Cesar Gaviria. Why he was a president? Because this person who is here, he was going to be the president of Colombia, but he was killed. It seems that he was killed by Pablo Escobar, but it's not clear. He might be killed also by some right-wing military. He might have been killed also by his own party, political party, because he was too liberal. And it's not clear. It's not clear. But anyway, when he was killed, Cesar Gaviria took his place, and he became Colombia's president. But Cesar Gaviria, after being president, he was like the director of the Americas kind of United Nations, the Organización de Estados Americanos. And also he began to collect art. And he became a big collector, one of the biggest art collectors in Colombia. So if you are in a dinner in Colombia and people are saying, no, he was a terrible president, he left Pablo Escobar living in his jail like if it was a mansion, etc., somebody will raise his hand and will say, no, but he's an art collector. So you will get mixed feelings. You will be like, yeah, okay. Yeah, he's a cultivated person. Okay, I don't mind the thing of Escobar. He's okay. So here you can see a picture of a Jet Set magazine or the Vanity Fair magazine of Colombia. And there is Cesar Gaviria there saying like, I took refuge in art. And he not only took refuge in art, but he founded a gallery. And here he is with the director of the gallery. This one, not this one. In Colombia, it happens something with people who have been a president. The ex-presidents, like we like to call them, they like still to do politics. And not even in order to get reelected. They simply like it. They don't have like the discrete thing of disappear. They are still there. So Cesar Gaviria still has a lot of power. And he's here working, for instance, with the second man on his party, like making strategies towards elections and towards decisions. What happened during 3 years ago when the daughter of Gaviria was named the head of the art fair? It seems that there was a change on the configuration of the fair. This person here and this person here, the art fair is managed by the Chamber of Commerce of Bogota. That is a very powerful institution and very politicized. And what happened is that even if she was elected there, she was directing the art fair, these two women, they wanted to take control also of the art fair. They wanted to appear in all the pictures of the art fair. And you can see it here. Even if she's the director, look who is the one who's looking like the director of the art fair. So there was a division. But this division was not only for vanity. It was also a political division, because Cesar Gaviria and the actual president of Colombia are on one right side of the country. And on the other side, on the more right, it's not the left, on the more right side of the country is the former president of Colombia, there is Álvaro Uribe. And these two women who were above Gaviria, they were from the political party of the former president. So these two, wanted to control this side of the Chamber of Commerce, but they couldn't do it because she was there. And you will need read like on the press things trying to attack this woman in order to debilitate her, but nothing worked, and she was really firm. But one day, there was a news clip. And the news clip was titled very strange. It says, indignation in the national art circuit. And the indignation was that one of the artists of the Gaviria's gallery was excluded from the individual booths of the art fair, because there seems to be like a conflict of interest. Of course, nobody knew about that. And nobody indignated like that. Nobody cares about it. But there was like a like a political momentum there. So this journalist, that is the radio host of one of the most important radio programs in the morning, he decided to call the president of the Chamber of Commerce, like if it was like a casual question. And she called her, and she says, hey, there seems to be a problem there with that artist, please tell us. And she begins to tell the story. And suddenly, he really begins to attack her. He spends 15 minutes on national radio attacking her. You could say that he destroyed her on cultural terms. He never asked anything about the Chamber of Commerce. He only talked about art. He only talks about Gaviria's gallery. He only talks about the vanity of why he wanted to appear in a picture, things like that. But she was really debilitated. She didn't expect that. She thought that she was going to talk about art, but she really got attacked. And a few months later, after the directors of the Chamber of Commerce went to apologize to Gaviria, that woman was sacked of the Chamber of Commerce, and they placed a new director that is here, and she is from the same party as him. So art really is useful. And here you can see the opening of the art fair, the 10 years of the art fair, and they are posing here with the Ministry of Culture and with the wife of the president of Colombia. Of course, there are other places where they have done that. Last year, Colombia was invited to Arco Art Fair in Spain. Of course, it was invited because Spain is bankrupt, and they are not giving too much money as before to the Arco Art Fair. And Colombia paid a little bit of money in order to be there. They were invited, but they have to pay a little bit. And the important thing that I like about this, the article that I wrote about this issue, is that there were like 5 curators on this thing. But the real curator wasn't like somebody from the art world. The real curator was Colombian art, the Colombian ambassador in Spain. That is this guy here that you see next to the president. So he was the one who selected with whom works they should have posed. This is the Ministry of Culture, like saying a speech. Which works shouldn't go to Spain. For instance, this is a work by Wilson Diaz that was censored before, like 10 years ago, because it was a state-funded exhibition that was taking place in London. And it was a video of guerrilleros, like dancing. And the embassy there removed the work from there. So they prefer to post besides Doris Salcedo, that even if she's talking, it seems, about Colombia, it's much more cleaner images. And here you see like the face of being uncomfortable of one of the curators. And here is the ambassador like talking during all the venues. You can see it here, 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 you can see it here. And of course, art is very useful. In terms of diplomacy, art or culture is known as a soft power. So what can be an art fair? The art fair can be, as I see it sometimes, as a hunting season. So each city that wants to give an image of being cosmopolitan can determine like a few days for that hunting season. So all the city will rumble and will go into that hunting season, and the rest of the year it will be very difficult or it will be banned to hunt. And also, what are the differences between the different art fairs? Of course, there are differences. In some places, there might be more money. In other places, there will be more illustrated curators or collectors, etc. But sometimes you feel like in a Marriott hotel. This is the one from Art Basel, Hong Kong. This is the one from Bogota. And look, it's very difficult to distinguish one from the other. This is an interview that I like that they made to David Hickey in the art newspaper. David Hickey is a North American writer, and he has done all kinds of things. He has been a gallerist, a merchant, a curator, a teacher, etc. So they ask him what has been the change during the last years that he has noticed. And he says, the main change which people haven't noticed is that there is no middle class anymore. There is a courtier class that will be you and me. You are intellectual headwaiters to very rich people. As a consequence, compared to disposable income of contemporary collectors, art is cheaper than it ever has been. A purchase that will mean a lot to a nice couple on the west side will be nothing to these people. Also, collectors don't understand the geometry of price elevation in art, especially in historical art. That means that they flip the art too soon, which screws up the market. That means they then don't take care of it. That means it doesn't matter to them, period. I always wanted to sell artworks for enough money that the collector will walk by it and think, 4,000 grand, and look at it. I always hope that there will be some kind of transubstantiation from money value to art value. This is an image inspired by the idea of intellectual waiters to very rich people. So you can see an article that is they do it annually in Colombia before the art fair, and this is like the people who made the Colombian art scene. So I put some people on Photoshop that aren't supposed to be there. This is another article that I published in the website of Colección Cisneros. The name was Boom, 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 the Middle Class and Latin American Art. And it quotes a World Bank study published at the end of 2013 that states that between 2003 and 2009, the middle class in Latin America grew by 50%. And this is the part that interests me. Latin America finds itself as crossroads. Will it break further with the fragmented social contract that it inherited from its colonial past and continue to pursue greater parity of opportunities? Or will it embrace even more forcefully a perverse model where the middle class opts out and fends for itself? Before coming here, I brought this article on a Colombian magazine where I have a monthly column, and it's simply a speculation. It's simply a comparison between the art fair and the book fair. So in Colombia, for instance, the entrance to the art fair costs $2. And it's wrong. The entrance to the art fair costs $10. The entrance here it should say 2. The entrance to the book fair costs $2. So the fee of the entrance is at the entrance discriminatory by itself. The art fair in Colombia lasts 3 days. The book fair lasts 2 weeks. The art fair in Colombia is only about contemporary art. The book fair is of books. Books of all kinds of books, genres, types of writers, readers, and ways of reading. Which will be the audience of both places? In this place, before coming here, there was a kind of polemics in Colombia because this is the most popular YouTuber from Latin America. And he announced it by himself that he was going to be at the art fair, publicizing his book and giving signatures. That thing didn't appear anywhere. It didn't appear on the papers. He only announced it on his Facebook page and on his YouTube video and his YouTube channel, where he has 27 million followers worldwide. And that day, the book fair collapsed. There were no entries. There were these crowds trying to sign the book. And he stays for 13 hours signing books and giving hugs to his followers. And there was that idea that he shouldn't be at the book fair. But why? He was launching a book. He has all the right to be there. And it's part of the book, you know. Of course, here they only have contemporary art. Why the art fair does that thing and why the book fair does that thing? It's simply a speculation. So this is to finish. This is fast. The Argentinian film director Lucrecia Martel has mentioned in various interviews a series of anxieties that are always present in her features. The films of her are La Ciénaga, La Niña Santa, La Mujer Sin Cabeza. Martel's concerns are equally relevant to art, especially now that elitism is an inherent condition of perception and its subsequent conversion into taste. She says, cinema suffers from an illness. It rests in the hands of just one social class. For a long time and all around the world, it has been in the hands of the upper middle class. And this has resulted in a fairly evident homogeneity. We had very good sentiments and great sensibility. This mix leads us to a preoccupation with social conflicts that we don't really know, as though they were objects that are easy to get close to. There is a shortage of self-criticism and abundance of reiterations of representation of the social classes, especially the working class, from a very demented place, from guilt or a pain of. And later, we represent our own class. We turn, with much indulgence, to the artist. And if this act will save people from the evil intentions of their fellow humans. And this is Borges again. So Sofia started a little bit with Borges, and I'm going to finish with Borges. And this is a text written by Borges in 1951. The name of the text is The Argentine Writer and Tradition. And this is what Borges says. What is our Argentine tradition? I believe we can answer this question easily and that there is no problem here. I believe our tradition is all of Western culture, and I also believe we have a right to this tradition, greater than which the inhabitants of one or another Western nation may have. I recall here an essay of Thorstein Veblen, the North American sociologist, on the preeminence of Jews in Western culture. He asked if this preeminence allows to conjecture about the innate superiority of Jews, an answer in the negative. He says that they are outstanding in Western culture because they act within that culture and at the same time do not feel tied to it by any special devotion. For that reason, he says, a Jew will always find it easier to a non-Jew to make innovations in Western culture. And we can say the same of the Irish in English culture. In the case of the Irish, we have no reason to suppose that the profusion of Irish names in British literature and philosophy is due to any racial preeminence, for many of those illustrious Irishmen, Shaw, Berkeley, Swift, were the descendants of Englishmen, were people who had no Celtic blood. However, it was sufficient for them to feel Irish, to feel different, in order to be innovators in English culture. I believe that we Argentines, with South Americans in general, are in an analogous situation. We can handle all European teams, handle them without superstition, with an irreverence which can have, and already does have, fortunate consequences. So that will do.